Joining us on the Easter Automotive Group hotline in the dungeons of PNC Arena, it is Mike Maniscalco, voice of the Carolina Hurricanes, Bally Sports. Hi, Mike. How are you?
I am good, Joe. I have spent countless, I think we could probably add up the hours into months and perhaps years in the dungeons of this building. So it's like home.
But it's getting a renovation.
Yes, it is.
Are we getting a Maniscalco suite?
I would hope so.
A place to park the big rig?
Yeah. Well, there was one upstairs. I have an office.
Still have your little office?
Well, I took the nameplate down because my office has then become the catch-all. So you need storage. You need something photocopied.
Like the red stapler there?
Yeah, and then it became more and more, why is this chair and this computer here? And so now that it's more of a fortress of solitude now than I'd say an office.
So how was your summer? Did you get grittier this summer? Did you add some physicality?
I think by the looks of it, yes, I did.
Yeah.
No, I did a little bit of sandpaper, but that was because my air conditioning went out, and I had to go 2 weeks with. Can I give a plug to a company or no? The folks at Six and Fix came out because it was July 2nd, and you know how fun it is to try to get anybody out around the holidays.
Forget it.
They came out July 3rd, and the kid who just made sure we had, it was like you tie the fan on the cat's tail with a block of ice. He made sure that I had that until I got the HVAC replaced. So, yeah, 85 degrees in the upstairs. Not conducive for this body to go to sleep. That's for sure. But I'd like to say I got a little angrier, got a little more, a little more edgy, if you will.
Not fake toughness, toughness.
Real.
We want real toughness.
You got to suffer.
I guess that we can get into the hockey conversation from there because we talked to Rod Brindamore at the end of the season, and the part that Joe and I kind of chuckled at was like, man, that's fake tough, because the reaction is like, the Canes need to get back in there. Action after the whistle. They're not really stepping up, and Rod's like, whatever, man. Like that's fake stuff. And we're just doing what the refs say they're going to look out for, and they're not looking out for it. But you kind of know what the deal is, so you can see where the Canes wanted to do that with Bunting and Lemieux.
Yeah, and even Dmitry Orlov, to a sense of what he brings on the blue line. Look, the days of having players on your roster who the only thing they do are hit people, fight, and try to start fights. It's over. You have to be a player, too. You have to be able to kill penalties or score goals. It's a name that nobody really likes to hear around these parts, but you need, if you're going for that, everybody's looking for Tom Wilson because he's a unicorn with what he does. But what you have to do, and I think what the Eastern Conference Finals showed, and I do agree with Rod, that's fake tough, the face wash stuff and the whatever, but you get to a point where you just can't take it. Sometimes you have to, all right, we're gonna pick at you, see how you react to this. And I think where it's going to be different for the Canes, it's going to be pick the spots. You're not going to see these guys do it all the time. But for me, those two additions, and let's start with the two guys up front. Michael Bunting draws penalties. And, the more, and I know the power play question's coming, so I'll leave it kind of in the ether for now. But the more shots you get at it, the better you should get at it. Brendan Lemieux, to me, is a guy who, if it all comes together, if it all clicks, there's a lot of skill there. He's a guy who, if you do the redraft, he was top of the second round. It would have been a first-round pick the way the league's set up now. But he is that irritant. He is hard to play against, but he hits. He's physical, and he doesn't take a lot of anything off of the opposition. But again, can you do it in control? And I think that Rod Brindamore is the coach who can do that. And we've got the prime example, as I continue to prattle on with his answer, is, that was the question for Tony DeAngelo. How are you going to keep him in line with? Well, go take a look. And I know you can point to examples. Those things are going to happen, though, when you have players who have that kind of emotion when they play on that edge. It's going to happen. It will boil over. But Tony was not a problem at all in his season with the Canes. If anything, he got other teams going after him at times. That's what you want to see.
The only time I got out of turn with DeAngelo was against the Rangers at the end.
Yeah.
That's when he became a liability. So that honestly, in my opinion. But now, again, I'll be harsh here when it comes to Tony DeAngelo. The idea you bring him here, I understand what he's bringing to you on the power play, but you also have to hide him on defense. And who are you going to pair him with? So who's he going to be with?
Well, right now, from the looks of camp, it's Dmitry Orlov.
Okay.
But if you go take a look at that season here, Joe, he played with Jacob Slavin, and he was a plus 30.
Yeah,
So
I think Joe and I could probably be a +2 with Jacob Slavin.
without a doubt.
You know what I'm saying?
But what I'm driving,
Maybe not Joe.
at least an even, Joe. At least an even. But to that end, and I don't like that term. You got to hide them, but I think that the way that the Hurricanes defense is constructed, you're not asking him to go out and shut down the top
bonus
pair.
at this point.
He is a bonus at this point.
And
It's not like the last time you had him, you needed him to be the number one quarterback on your power play. You needed him to be, top
on your top unit. You needed him to play there. And he showed he could do it. And look, last year that Philadelphia team was a mess. And he'll be the first one to tell you he needed to be better. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to say that this place has the magic potion for everybody. But you take a look at some of the guys who've come in. Not everybody's been great who the Canes have signed.
Eric Hall.
And they've moved on. But he
hasn't moved on.
But that's true. Well, some things are hard to quit, Joe.
Am I taking
interesting bracelet you have on, by the way, today?
Right?
Am I taking crazy pills though? And I don't know if like being tougher or grittier or whatever is what the Canes need. I think they need a healthy Andrei Svechnikov. I think they need the tippy top skill guys. That's what I look at and go, that's what I thought was missing from the Canes. Maybe I was watching the wrong thing.
Well,
because it's the guy who scored all the goals for Florida.
Right. It's Matthew Tkachuk.
Tkachuk scores all these goals, and now everyone thinks, well, that's how you win the cup. You go and get a guy like Matthew Tkachuk.
Well,
it's like, I don't know. Look what Colorado did the year before.
No,
I've always looked at Colorado as the Canes template.
And I think that I actually look at Tampa as the Canes template.
Well, yeah, but you don't have Vasilevsky. Right.
And neither do they for the first 2.5 months of this season. But when I say template, like what they have up front, but then you start taking a little bit of a dive in it, and like, okay, you don't have a Steven Stamkos on the Carolina Hurricanes. You have, I think, a Braden Point in Sebastian Aho, but then you start going man for man. The Canes are their own template. Like we always, everything is a copycat league. Every sport is. I don't care what anybody talks about.
There are no new ideas.
That's correct. And remember,
just turn on your radio.
Remember, it's not stealing. It's incorporating.
Right.
Or a music term for Joe Ovius, interpolation.
A sample.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I do think that the Canes needed it just from the point of you don't want to sit on the bench with your skill guys, having them thinking about, I got to go out there and this guy's going to spear me, or this guy. I think that's where it comes in. And again, it wasn't a complete overhaul. In the one guy they bring in, Michael Bunting, has shown he can play that kind of game, but he can also play with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and high-skilled players and score goals. His career, his trajectory keeps going up. And again, for Brendan Lemieux, I think there's a lot more skill there than what people have thought. And that I'm not coming on here going, well, he's going to score 30 and be no. But if you can get 10,
sure,
and like 35 points out of a guy who I don't know if he plays all 82, but that's a bonus. But when you hear the term harder to play, I'm with you, Joe. You become harder to play because you start scoring more goals and the power play clicks in. But you go back to that Eastern Conference final series, you don't have Andrei Svechnikov on the ice. I don't say that the Canes win it because Sergei Bobrovsky went to another planet.
Yeah. For one series.
Well, no, honestly, he did it for the two previous.
That's true.
They had to beat Boston, and he wasn't the starter in Boston.
He fell back down to earth after. So,
and I think that the layoff actually hurt Florida because sometimes we've seen this with teams in the NCAA tournament. You get on a roll, things break your way. You go through the first half of your bracket, and then sometimes sitting down, that's when the shoe doesn't fit for Cinderella anymore. And plus Vegas was pretty damn good. Yeah. So
is Brett Pesce going to be on the playoff roster for the Carolina Hurricanes?
It's a better question for Don Waddell than for me. But I think that the organization has shown that they're not afraid to take players that are going into unrestricted free agency and keep them. Mm-hmm. And keep them for the whole year. And
are you surprised Pesce's on the roster right now?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Because what it comes down to for me is what would you want in return and what teams are willing to offer that in return.
Right.
So, look, when it comes to deals and anything like that, in today's age, the days of making a trade for the sake of making a trade, I think, are over. It's always, what are we getting? What's the return?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we let you walk the next year, then we have your cap space.
Yeah.
That's actually an asset.
So and thanks, Joe, because nobody thinks of that anymore. Everybody just thinks of, you're going to get nothing from. Well, no, you're going to have that space to go.
You will get space.
But in the terms of both, and it's funny because everybody says Brett Pesce, Brady Shea's in the same boat too. Yeah. In the terms of both of them, I just look at how they play, how they fit, and the Canes look at we know what we have with these two players on our roster. So if we quote unquote have to move them because we don't have them signed right now, well, then what we get in return better be equal value for that. And if you're another team out there, well, why would I give you equal value right now? We'll play the waiting game for it, and we'll wait for Pesci or we'll wait for Shea. And oh, by the way, just even if they go through the whole season and nothing gets done, they don't get traded, they don't get a contract, they still have until July 1st to sign them, or you can move the rights on to somebody
And
else.
what hockey teams love to do at the trade deadline?
Yes.
Panic and overpay.
Yes. And look, if the Canes are
That's why I asked
cooking
that.
along, but my thing for this organization, if they're going to make a move like that, that happens before the trade deadline.
Yeah.
I think if you get to the trade deadline and the roster that we think it's going to be when we get to October 11th is the same roster,
Knock on something.
yeah, you're not gonna see any of that get moved unless there is an injury and you have to fill a void that way.
The impression that the impression that I'm getting, not being here for camp stuff, is because they're running it back, so to speak. There's a normalcy might not be the right word to use, but how would you describe just the kind of general? It's almost business like.
Yeah.
There's no like fun frivolity. It's like, yeah, look, man, we're still stung from last year. We're here. We all know the deal. Let's just get this freaking season going.
Well, I mean, how many years ago are we now removed from the revenge tour of
Right.
teams doing that?
Right.
I don't necessarily know it's a revenge tour for the Canes, but it's more of a, no, this is what we are tour. We deserve to be the team that people are picking to win the Stanley Cup. We deserve to be the Eastern Conference favorite. I look at the Metro, and I get that when you have the Metroplex area with New York and New Jersey, they're
It's a
going
tri-state area too.
in the
sir.
tri-state area too. Yeah, you're going to Metroplex is Dallas. You're going to get
You've been hanging out with Tom Dunn.
a little bit. Hey, doing what I can. But
You know who signs the checks.
but in this situation, like you look at that, like the Devils are going to get all this attention for
course
what
they
they've
are.
done because it's the only time the New York media sticks their head up for them, but also what the Rangers are doing. And here are the Canes. And I'm glad you said run it back because a lot of people will look at what Carolina did this offseason. And one, they signed the number one defenseman who's out there in Dmitry Orlov. And people are like, why are you doing that? Well, why would taking his strength and making it stronger be a bad thing? But it was, for me, you get Jesper Fast, Jordan Stahl, and your two goaltenders back on the roster for less money than what you had on the roster the year before. That's good stuff. And that tells you that those guys are kind of buying into what's going on here. Oh, by the way, you get an extension for Sebastian Aho that kicks in next year, that by the time he gets to the end of that deal, it's going to be way below market value. I think that just tells you that the players believe in what's going on here and they want the kick at the can the way that it's constituted. It's nothing but good signs when you look at the offseason that Carolina had when it comes to retaining or bringing in players for this market. That was, oh, by the way, I'll say 3.5, because that first overtime game, I think they're still playing. 3.5 wins away from going to the Stanley Cup.
I'm actually tired just thinking about it right now, given how long that thing went. Now, the reason I bring that up is last year, and Joe and I get into this conversation every so often about, who's running hot when during the course of the regular season, right?
It matters.
It matters, but I also sometimes wonder with the Canes specifically, it's a slog, man. And when you dominate the way they do, there are some times where you just kind of go through a little bit. So I was curious if you always hear about how, we're still mad about last season. I feel like this season is different with how it ended for them and why I don't feel they're going to go through that kind of malaise that tends to happen once we get into January, February.
No, and part of it is because of the guys who've been in that locker room for the last 5 years. A big part of it is the head coach and Rod Brindamore, who this is what they demand. I have the easiest job in the world when it comes to calling a team because I know what this team does every night. They don't deviate from it.
No, they don't.
They don't.
What they call
No matter who's out there.
Somebody called it bastardized hockey. Is that what it was?
What? Fine. I love
Okay,
it.
cool.
I love it. Every night, I know that it's never an effort thing.
Yeah.
It really, we've covered enough college basketball
Yeah, no, we
to
know.
not to ask the effort question to certain guys. The effort's the same every night.
Every night.
But
Well, Mike.
this really is with this team, and it's the standard that was set that, okay, you might lose a game. And I can count, honestly, on one hand in the last 5 years a game where you're like, what was that?
Yeah.
Like that, it wasn't there. That's pretty good. 1 out of 82 a year.
How long has Rod been retraining our questions about losing but still being happy?
Oh.
It's like, I like the way we played. You just didn't bounce our way tonight.
Yeah. And
Or they win, and Rod's like, this was shit. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you won. What's the problem? Because he has a way he wants to play.
because there's you stay in this structure, and that's the good thing for me, because I know you're going to get that. Now, not every player is going to have a great game, but the majority of the guys are going to throw whatever cliche you want, and that's what they do. And I think that's why this one is personal, because I think they looked at how everything started to break for them last year.
Yeah.
The big bad Bruins get knocked out by this team that shouldn't have been in the postseason.
Bracket luck is real.
Bracket luck is real, Joe.
Yeah, and that's why I always get mad when people talk about, oh, they had this easy.
Who cares?
You got to play who's in front of you. Not your fault that the good team lost, the series
that,
or the
Joe?
round before.
Hear that? Virginia fans looking at you right now, Joe. Just saying.
Oh, what? I mean, everybody does.
I know.
But you still have to win the games that are in front of you. But I do think, go back to 09. 19. But 09, I can do this. When they lose to Pittsburgh. I mean, that Pittsburgh team was damn good. And, the Canes were that. What a good run, the run they had to do to get into the playoffs. Like, they basically, from, January on, under Paul Maurice, it was playoff mode.
His mongrels or whatever he called them at that time.
19, same thing.
Yeah, same thing. Bunch of jerks.
Yeah, you go to January 1st, Canes are third from the bottom in the league, not the division. And they go on the run, and then they get to the conference final and run into a Boston team that just happened to be really damn good. Last year, the Canes believed they were the better team, that they were really damn good. And it's not that it was, and they'll never blame injuries, they'll never blame whatever. They got goalied. They did.
Yeah,
and Florida had you got clutch guys playing in clutch moments, and sometimes you get on that wave and you ride it until when it crashes. It crashed for Florida in the final. But I think that's why it's different, Joe. When you talk about it, it wasn't shucks, it was good run here, and hey, weird things happen.
Wasn't the Duke football. Good job, attaboy.
Yeah, no, it's
You
not
gave you gave Florida State a good run.
It was more 2010 NC State. I won't use the MF, but you had that.
Yeah,
You had that thing, and sometimes you regret.
Yeah.
When you have that type of opportunity, it is harder to stomach that type of opportunity than the attaboy run that you have.
And I think that this group has been together so long, like that's how they look at that. Like that was our.
That was your
Yeah.
chance.
What are we?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
But
Little do they know they have more chances.
They do. Well,
it's hard to process that. Because when we talk to Aho, it's hard to look at him and be like, you're 26. I feel like I've known you your whole life. I feel like you've been in the NHL your whole life. But the truth of the matter is, he's 26.
Yeah.
Where we talked to Jarvis today, he's going into his third year. He's 21.
I know.
It's like, what?
So, that's the thing. People look at. I love the term the windows. How
Sure.
this window is not closing anytime soon for this team.
We did look at Tom Dundon at the Stadium Series, and we were asking about windows. He's like, this window isn't closing.
Certain
We're
window.
like, well, windows, the size of the window will vary after a while. So that's that.
Absolutely. But I mean, this isn't.
I feel like the size of the window for the Carolina Hurricanes is actually at its largest right now. And after this season, I'm not saying it's going to close, but it's the vent will be about halfway.
Well, I mean, it changes. Like, I mean, do you now get more cost efficient? High argon gas windows that keep the sun out? I don't know. What do you do here?
You're taking me to a previous life.
Yeah, I know.
I used to be able to reel that off.
He's got a guy. So
You got a guy.
And you got a guy.
Yeah, we all got guys.
At one point in time,
you got guys.
At one point in time, we all had a guy.
No, he's got a legit window guy.
Well, I know he does. All right, before we get out of here,
I really do.
Mike Medicine.
And it's a good thing to have.
Did you get any new ties this offseason?
New ties?
New wardrobe?
No. I had to. I put the wardrobe on hold because of my air conditioning.
Well, there's that. You don't want to.
So if anybody wants,
I'm just curious if there's.
I have an extra kidney that anybody needs. Don't know the. I think it's in okay condition. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with me that doctors have poked around at.
I was going to say, Mike, we don't need to remove more from you.
Well, the funny thing is, when we get to San Jose, the Shark game this year is the day of.
Oh, is it for real?
The day of.
Oh, jeez.
And it was.
How is that even possible? Like the computer.
Yeah.
Like,
They know.
The scheduling spit that out for you. Like, hey,
Yeah.
Mike.
Hey,
That
was the first thing my wife said to me. She goes, "I better not get a call that I need to fly out to San Jose on October 16th."
That's with in spirit of Mr. Chow just having been here for College Game Day. But did you die?
Toodaloo. That's what I want to say to San Jose as I get on the plane.
So no new ties?
No, I think I got one.
Okay.
One new tie.
I just figured through the offseason, you're like, you know what? I'm on TV all the time. I got to mix it up. Well, I'm noticing that with the YouTube stuff. I'm like, man, I wore that T-shirt last week.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Like you, especially when you go back and look at stuff, you're like, oh man, I wore that shirt and tie like 4 games
just
ago.
have to pull a
I wonder if
Harbaugh
anybody
and
knows
wear the
that.
same outfit every
I
day.
might.
I know.
I'm just going to wear nothing but Ovies and Julio stuff.
That works.
Yeah.
That
By the way,
works.
next time we see you, we'll bring you some gear.
Merch it up.
Oh,
'Cause
definitely.
Jarvis got our gear. Unless you want our golf balls.
No.
Oh, no, Joe.
No.
Is that the last
No.
sleeve?
He's giving away my baseball cards, my football cards. Like he doesn't know what to give away.
don't
Pay
know.
no attention to him.
Start giving away his vinyl. Start giving away his vinyl collection.
I'm cutting off your mic.
Which, by the way, I need to talk to you because I have re-entered the vinyl world of music, and you can thank my better half for this.
Okay.
Because her birthday was this past weekend.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Kristen.
So thank you. And you're trying to come up with like gifts and things like this,
Yeah.
and it was a significant number. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to come up with like real stuff and how do you fake her out and do this? Somehow the party worked out well, but one of her favorite. And now we're going to go into the radio and music portion of the OG podcast here, which is one of her. And if you dated a girl in the early 90s to mid 90s who was in college, Liz Phair it's the
Sal Guyville.
30th anniversary reprint because it came out in like 93.
Let's get pricey, dude.
Well, no, I got it cheap. So because it's a
say that.
reprint, it's not the original. Now she's going to listen. Why didn't you give me the original?
What's the original?
But
Well, I will say this though, and shout out to my guys at Nice Price, and shout out to Aaron over at Sound Off. The represses actually fidelity are better
I know.
than the originals, but because people want the
I know.
original, it gets jacked up in price. But that's where we're at.
So I got that, and then I realized we don't own a record player. Oh, so I got her a record player for her birthday. So
Joe's got 4.
I'm sure of that.
Oh well, I got cassettes too. I brought a cassette for Seth Jarvis, which we'll get to.
He had no idea what it was.
He had no idea. He thought it was a VHS.
Really?
Yeah, he's like, "What do I do with this?" He's like,
That's fair, though.
He's like, "Oh, my dad had one of these in his car."
Well, you know what? You could really freak out some of the young guys with the Discman, where you had the cassette player to play the Discman in your car. Oh yeah, that was prime
Next level.
1994.
Yes.
All right. Well, talking to you reminds me, I got to go sign up for Bally. So
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
my gravy train finally ended. My dad got rid of Spectrum, so I'm actually have to leave the nest.
All right,
Mike, I have to go pay for Bally
Come
Plus.
back to the cord world, Joe.
No, I'm not getting cable. I'll just pay direct to Bally. And can I designate? Is it $20 a
You know
month?
who can pay for that?
The OG Media
OG
LLC.
Media LLC.
I'm gonna need the credit card for that.
There you go.
Yeah,
So
if you
can I designate on Bally Sports? I want this $20 to go directly to Mike.
Please,
Maniscalco.
yes, please do.
I will only sign up for this.
Or send a Venmo as for Kane's Cast, as Shane says, Shane R. Willis. Mine is Mike.
I know where Shane lives in Garner. He doesn't need the help.
No, it's Garnier where he lives.
That's true.
I know where he is.
We're going inside now. Anything else we want? I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here. Anything else we want to get here?
We have. I mean, this is his own damn podcast.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
This is perfect for Joe because Joe now knows in the world of podcasting is like, oh, okay, because we've done 24 minutes here, that means I don't have to work as much the next time.
Yeah. That's
Work smarter, not harder.
That's
What I told him when we started this. Do the shit we want to do, not what all the other nonsense we don't want to do.
By the way, I am so happy that you guys curse on this.
Yeah.
Really, because the freedom of doing it, I cannot.
No.
But it's there. It's rattling around. I almost said when I did Toodaloo, it almost happened.
I know. But we try not to go too hard in the paint with the cursing
no.
because
Well, that's the
we've
thing.
heard from parents that are like, look, I'm listening to the podcast on my way home from school, and at least keep it mild. So we keep it mild.
That's fine. I mean, PG.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I said.
13.
Yeah.
I mean, the Marvel movies they curse. Come on now.
PG-13, you're allowed one.
Yeah. Oh, 1F?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're out one
in PG-13. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that we've crossed that Rubicon
No,
yet.
not yet.
Except to quote somebody.
Only
Because
when
when
we
Sean
quote it.
Payton set it to
only,
Russ.
Yeah, only when we've done that. Only when we've done. All right, Mike. We'll see you around, dude.
Yeah, and I mean, we clearly see that Sean Payton has got the magic, right?
Of course. Yeah, rules are a little bit different now. We might actually ask you to jump into a beer cave with us, since we can't technically do a broadcast from here, but we can probably get you to jump into the beer cave at Breeze Through. Just saying.
That won't be an
free
issue.
coffee.
Won't be an issue. Yeah, free coffee.
All right, Mike. Later,
Julio, good to see you.
Same.
Get him straight.